Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Keeping It Real with Tiff and Carl. I'm Carl Rabun,
I'm Tiffany Salcido.
and welcome to fall, unofficially.
Oh,
And
y'all.
yeah, it is Labor Day has passed. I put up all my white clothing, although really I have one pair of white shorts and two white shirts. That's about it. But I don't know. Do you find yourself revamping during fall or seasons?
I wear what I want when I want. And so where I live at, it's warm pretty much all year. So I've still got my summer, spring, like I don't have any seasons. I just happen to have like my hoodie collection. I'll just flip my clothing rack over to have easier access to the hoodies. That's pretty much the only thing that will change for me. But the only thing I will say is that it is now Halloween nail time. So the only thing that really shifts for me is I move away from like cute summer nails to now Halloween nails every week until the end of October.
Are you a
So
pumpkin spice girl?
I'm a pumpkin spice girl for sure.
Okay.
I
Well,
had kids that used to work for Starbucks, and I'm not going to say how, but some pumpkin spice syrup accidentally found its way to my house, like
well,
the big gallon of it. And so we pumpkin spice all year long. They don't work there anymore, and so my connection is gone. But um,
need a new connect, a new hookup.
I know there's all kinds of like recipes and stuff online for it. But yeah, you know who's more of a pumpkin spice than me though is my husband.
Really?
He is a pumpkin spice girl all the way. He's more so than me. And so it's really funny because when we do order, he'll be like, "This is not the right color." He is more of a pumpkin spice snob than I think I am. But I do enjoy
Well,
pumpkin spice.
nice, nice. I mean, I wouldn't kick pumpkin spice out of bed, but I'm much more of a pumpkin bread, pumpkin pie type of guy. That's more my jam.
Yeah.
And especially since the sugar-free pumpkin spice is it ain't hitting. So,
Mm.
yeah, it's very watered down, and yeah, so I just try to stay away from it, you know.
Yeah.
But But yeah, so yeah, it's coming. And you know what else is coming? Bum 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 bum. Are you guys football fans? Are you a football
Oh God,
household?
no. Absolutely not.
No,
Absolutely not.
no.
I'm so blessed. He's not a sports guy. Like he'll watch basketball from time to time. He'll watch baseball from time to time, but he's not one that like watches sports on the weekend. And he doesn't play video games. Jackpot. And so my boys played football their whole lives, like my sons.
Oh,
And if I never see another football game until the day I die, I'm going to be okay. I'm
yeah,
footballed out for this lifetime,
cool,
for
cool,
sure. But
cool.
you're a football fan? Who's your team?
49ers.
Oh,
Is there another team? Right. But yeah,
oh,
so well,
oh,
I'm born and raised in San
that's
Francisco,
true.
as we like to call the city. So, grew up 10 minutes from Candlestick, either way. So yeah, and I couldn't escape it. And I'm in two fantasy football leagues, and so we one of them I run. We had a draft last week, and another one we just had a draft yesterday morning. I'm not happy with either team, but what are you gonna do? So and but
It's all made
what
up
I find
anyways.
well true. Yeah, but what I found is the older I get, the less I guess tolerance I have for watching sports.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'll watch a 49er game. I'll watch a Giants game when they're good. I'll watch a Warriors game, right? But really, if it's not one of my teams, I have a hard time watching all the way through. So I like things like Sports Center or Red Zone or the highlight channels that'll just show the important stuff. Like I get Red Zone for football because if I play fantasy football, the Niners aren't on. I just want to see who's scoring what and who's got what. So it's really become more of a math assignment for me. Then,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
but I'm not interested in going to any more games. I used to do that when I was younger. I went to a bunch of historic 49er games growing up and things like that. And I will go to a Giants game. Or I went to an A's game actually this year because it's their last year in Oakland. And but because baseball's my thing. So, but other than that,
Yeah.
I'd rather be home watching it because I can go to the snack bar very easily. I don't have to stand in line at the bathroom, right? I don't have to pay for parking. I don't have to
Right.
deal with drunk people sitting in front of me unless it's my wife or my brother-in-law, and they're happy drunks, so we're fine with that, right? So, but yeah, so I try to I found myself kind of being more of a sports homebody. I actually prefer to watch games a lot of times by myself. Um,
Okay.
just because if I get mad, I can change the channel and not hear, oh, why are you
Yeah.
changing it, right? So, just little things like that. I don't like people watching me get nervous or out of sorts. I'm
Yeah.
50, I would be 52 this month, right? And, wow, you still at sports? Yes, I still at sports. Do that to me. Yes, sorry. That's why I changed the channel. Thank you very much.
Okay.
There's
You're allowed.
Sopranos reruns, Game of Thrones reruns, Top Chef reruns. I can do that all day. So, yeah. Anyways, yeah. So, okay, well, that's interesting. I did not know you weren't a football household. That's cool.
We are not. I will say though, my dad was a super Raiders fan.
Hmm.
Super Raiders fan. And so I was raised to only like the Raiders, and there was no space to like any other team.
Hmm.
Um, but again, I was never big into football, but I watched football again my whole life. I'm kind of over it. I do like basketball a lot. I've been a Lakers fan forever. But the last time I was like really into sports, and this was again me, not my spouse, me. I was into basketball a lot for a long time. The last season I was really into was like 2010, and that was when like
Kobe.
Kobe and stuff. But I also my second favorite team, which I know is like a contradiction, is the Celtics, and I loved the 2010 Celtics. And so when the playoffs were happening between the
Yeah.
Lakers and the Celtics, I was having a hard time rooting for both of them.
Wow.
I know it's a contradiction, but I really like the players. I really like the players on the Celtics in 2010. So Rajon Rondo was there. He was a rookie that season,
Hmm.
and I was like fascinated by Rajon Rondo. So I was like so into him. But after that season, I had so much like conflict. I just like I can't even watch basketball anymore because I'm like fighting with myself, rooting for both of my teams to beat each other. I don't know. It was really wild.
So
Um,
into Rondo's one facial expression.
Yeah. But he was so smooth with that ball. It was like watching him do like Harlem Globetrotter stuff in a regular NBA
Yeah.
game. Like he was so
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
loved him. Ugh. So anyways,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's right. No,
Um
I'm a Warriors fan, but I became a Lakers fan when I moved to LA. I moved to LA when I was 21,
uh
and they were trash. I mean, this is after Magic. Actually, Magic was the coach, and this was
mhm.
before Shaq. And so I rooted for Lakers because they were terrible. And so I
Yeah.
felt like I had
Yeah.
dispensation to root for the Lakers because I was far away from the Warriors. I mean, I rooted for them as long as they weren't beating the
Right.
Warriors. But I'm a Shaq guy. So
Mhm.
when Shaq
Gotcha.
came to the Lakers, I rooted for Shaq and then Kobe. But then so I yeah, the Celtics never liked the Celtics. I'm not a LeBron fan, so I root
Yeah.
those are the two
We
teams I
us
root
either.
against. So but yeah, it's interesting, especially where you live and that's all you get. I mean, when I lived in LA, it was the
Yeah.
Rams, the Raiders. I followed the Chargers because that's who I could follow. This is before 400 channels, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I couldn't get any Bay Area content. So you learn to deal with it, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
Dodgers are big down here. So
Unfortunately, yeah, yeah.
my
Mhm.
dog's name is Dodger. So don't start with me,
Well,
with you and your giant stuff. I might my I don't know what I guess I can call her. She's like my adopted daughter. She's my son's like best friend, but she's like my daughter. She's a big Giants fan. And so we have this rivalry going. Again, I don't watch baseball. I watch the scores, but I don't really like pay attention. But every time the Giants win the Dodgers, she has to, you know, give me some sass. And then I usually give it right back to her. So that's like the fun, the rivalry.
yeah,
But honestly, I could care less about sports.
yeah,
I could care less at all.
yeah.
Um, but you do anything fun over the last week or so? Anything cool?
Other than, well, I had the entire week off last week, and
Ooh,
yeah, which meant that I got to build classes.
fun.
No, I'm actually we're running a series for our tribal TANF folks, our tribal welfare department. And we're running that series in October, and I looked at some of the content, and it was a little outdated because it was based off of everyone working from home and social isolation and things like that. So I spoke to some of the folks that, you know, run the program, and I said, hey, do you mind if I put together some stuff and bring it up to current day? And so I spent most of the week doing that, and it was great. It was great. I'm really happy
Good.
with it. I'm excited. So that was cool. But then, my wife and I and some friends, we went and saw Babyface and at the Hard Rock Casino out here in Sacramento, and it was amazing. It was such a fun concert. I was expecting it was Babyface, it's just one of those bucket things from when I was a kid, and
Mhm.
I was expecting it to be cool. But I mean, he was there for a good 2 hours,
Oh, wow.
dancing, singing. He spent an hour, or he spent about 45 minutes doing his stuff, and then he spent an hour doing all the stuff he wrote for other people.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So like Boys to Men, Whitney Houston, Mary J. Blige, I mean, TLC, all the people
The
that ran
bop.
through the Face Records in the 90s, he basically wrote most of their hits. And
Wow.
so it was just a big sing along for 2 hours. I mean, my voice was hoarse at the end of it. We had a blast. We had a good time. And
How fun.
yeah, yes. And he's 66 and he looks the same. Even though he said I'm getting old, he says, the name is Baby Face, not Baby Body. Right. So
I can relate to that.
yeah. But I was like, okay, well you can sit down. I saw Gladys Knight and Patti LaBelle back in January, and Gladys was sitting down on the risers on stage for half the show and hitting all the notes. I mean, she's almost 80. She'll be 80 this year, right?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
you can take it easy if you want to, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and it was I'm glad that we went. We were waiting all that, so we like to do concerts. People like to
Mhm.
travel. We like to go to concerts. So
I
yeah.
did
How
some
about you?
traveling. I did
Yeah.
some traveling. So we've been going back and forth between here and Mexico, and we decided to stay in the States because we planned an impromptu vacation. I don't know, just randomly, let's go to Hawaii for a week. So we're doing that in a couple of weeks. I'm gonna take my
Wow.
mom. My mom is turning 65, and so she's never been. So we're gonna take her and have a little adventure. So that'll be a good time. And so we just decided to stay here since we'll be gone. It's like the whole thing. But we wanted to get away for the weekend, and so there's a train that comes from here to Riverside that goes to like Orange County, San Diego, and stuff like that. So we have electric bikes, and we go and ride our bikes at the beach all the time. There's so many bike trails and cool places that you can go that are bike friendly. So we jumped on the train and with our bikes, and we rode it down to San Clemente, and then we ended up staying in San Clemente for the weekend and just rode our bikes everywhere. We love San Clemente. It's like such a fun spot, and the beach is right there. It's beautiful. Um, we were laughing because one of the last times we hung out in San Clemente, we accidentally ended up on a Netflix show.
Hmm.
Um, and so while we were there at this little dive bar, there's this little dive bar in San Clemente called the Big Helens, and their
Mhm.
motto is "Come for one and stay till two." And that's absolutely a true story. It is like the coolest little like dive bar, and you go in, it's just very like locals and everybody's having a good time. The time we accidentally ended up on Netflix, we were camping. There's a campground very close to uh, that main area. Anyway, so we were there camping. We ended up going there for a couple of drinks, and then before you know it, like we're closing down the bar. We went for a drink, stayed till 2. I'm doing like marriage therapy at the bar with some girl that's crying. My husband's like laid out, just like laying down, chilling. I'm doing pool stick karaoke. You know how that goes. And then we had ordered pizza for the whole bar. It was one of those nights. We had a good old
Yeah.
time. But then the next day we had to like tear down all our camping stuff and go home. And we were both like, oh, I
Mhm.
hate my life. Right. And so I was acting like I was 20 the night before. I was feeling like I was 87 the next day. And so we get the RV all packed up, and it's like an hour and a half from there to our house. And we get down the road, and my husband's like, I'm not going to make it. I feel like crap. I'm not going to make it home. So we ended up parking in Huntington Beach
Mhm.
and just found like a day parking because we have this big old long RV. And we both take a nap. Like I have like pictures that my husband was laughing at me because I'm just like in the chair passed out because we both feel like crap. So we sleep all day long in this like parking lot. And then we end up getting up like we need food. We need sustenance. So we like get up, all of us hungover. We've been sleeping all day in this parking lot and we start walking. We find a little beach shack and we see a bunch of people in line. And so we just get in line and then they come, they're like, oh, we're filming like a promo video right now. So we're not really open. And we're like, we're, we're dying. We just need some food. So they're like, we'll give you 2 tacos if you sign this waiver and you can be in the background of the video. We're like, cool, no problem. We sign the thing. We get our 2 tacos. We eat them. It gives us the strength that we need to get down to the boardwalk to get actual food. And we forget all about it. And so then during the pandemic, this was all pre-pandemic. So during the pandemic, we're at home like everybody else watching Netflix and we're watching Taco Chronicles. And I see this interview and I'm like, have we watched this before? And my husband's like, no. I'm like, I feel like this is like deja vu. I feel like I saw that guy. Like I've seen this interview before. And then it clicked. We were sitting right there. Like we were there when they filmed this. I remember. So we rewound a little bit and we see us standing in line, both of us like this. And that's how I ended up on Netflix. Big Helen's got me on Netflix. And so we just
Wow.
remember that. It was so funny. We remember that when we were there. We're like, okay, we're not going hard. We're on our bikes. One drink just for nostalgia. Let's go ride our bikes and be
Oh,
good people. But good
Tacos
time.
Chronicles, Big
The Orange County.
Helens,
Yeah.
Orange
Well, Big Helen's
County.
wasn't on it. Big Helen's was not. Big Helen's is where we were the night before, which
Oh, okay,
made us
okay.
hungover. The Noggles was the place that they were filming Taco Chronicles at. It was the Orange
Novels.
County. Yeah. So that's when I
Okay.
became Netflix. I always tell people, so I've been on Netflix. It was literally like for 1 second and I'm standing in line fighting for my life because I was still hungover. That's it. I had just woken up from a nap in a parking lot.
All right, folks. So on a hungover Sunday, turn on Netflix, go to Taco Chronicles, and you'll feel right at
Right.
home. So
Yeah. So you can be professional and still be a degenerate in your spare time. Just saying. You can the adventures I have being a wild child out on these streets, let me tell you.
like I always
I'm,
say, no one's there to regulate my time outside of when I'm supposed to be working. So that's
that's
right.
right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Just me and Jesus.
That's right. But yeah, Big Helen, super cool place.
Very
Super
cool.
cool place.
That's Big Helens in San Clemente. Gonna have to
Yeah.
handle that next time I go to a Tritons football game. Okay, cool. All
Yep.
right. So I have big news. Yeah.
What?
Something else happened last week.
What?
We created a Facebook and an Instagram page for this podcast.
That's right. We's too many people. Let's be accountable. Carl is the brains behind this operation. Carl did it, and it's beautiful, and I love it.
See what happens when I have a week off. Things get done
Yeah,
all of a sudden. I keep saying, boy, if I had time, I'd get this. I had time. So yeah, no school, no work, no coaching. I mean, it was, yeah, everything. So things got done. It was nice. Found myself sitting on the couch saying, what else could I be doing with my time right now? I found it.
wow,
So yeah, it was
wow,
nice. It was nice. So we are on Instagram, at, Keeping It Real with Tiff and Carl, and our handle is, at KIR Tiff and Carl, and spelled out. And then our Facebook page is the same. Um, we will post announcements of, so we put this out pretty regularly on Saturdays and Tuesdays. If we have a part two, it comes out on Tuesday. But we're generally putting these out on Saturday at midnight. All right. If you're having fun at Big Sal's, what was it? Big Sal's
Big
or
Helen's, Big
Big
Helen's.
Helen's? And you're sitting in, you're splayed out at a table, and or you're doing some, couples therapy with somebody, and you want, hey, look, this podcast might help you. I mean, we come out live on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and Amazon, and all the iHeartRadio, and all those at midnight on Saturday mornings. So, or if you're at Noggles, which I think is Orange County for Nogales, right? But, but then, so, we have that going for us. We'll put up the questions that we come up with right? The tips riffs, right? We'll put up resources. So you'll see a bunch of those things that we talk about. If you don't, if you just listen to us rather than have the full experience of our backgrounds where we aren't um, on screen, you actually get those resources there as well. So just go ahead and pay attention, like it, follow us, right? Like and subscribe here. You'll get those notifications as well. So, but we just wanted to make sure you all knew that we are fully operational, up and running. And if anybody wants to ever, sponsor us and pay us for our time, you know, you know where to go to reach out, right? But then also, if you're looking for, opportunities, other things that we do, as well as podcasting and training, as we both of us do coaching, both of us do keynotes and speaking engagements across the state, and you know, uh, we're mobile, so I mean we can go as far as you guys want to bring us, and sometimes even into Mexico or Canada, however it works, right?
I got a
My
passport. We'll travel.
That's right. That's right. My passport doesn't expire until 2026. So,
Mhm.
although I want a new picture, but just if you ever want to reach out to us and you have anything that you want us to do, that those are great places to reach out. So we will be responsive. So, just wanted y'all to know, if you haven't been there yet, check us out and we will keep stuff updated. Or okay, I will keep stuff updated if that makes you feel better, Tiff. So yeah, okay.
I like I don't want to take credit because I'm telling you, Carl and I talked about this earlier. I'm like I'm not one. I get super excited about things and then I like completely lose interest. And it's not because it's not interesting. It's just the novelty of it wears off, and then I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's one of my
yeah,
biggest flaws. Can I be honest? It's one of my that, and I have a hard time remembering names. I really struggle with remembering people's names. And it's not because they're not important to me. I am just terrible. I named my kids. I chose their names and I forget their names half the time. Like I'm like,
yeah.
number three. That I call
Yeah.
them by their numbers, 1, 2, and 3. It's terrible. I'm
Thing one, thing
horrible.
two, and thing three, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
I'm like you, the little one, big one, sassy one, whatever. I forget their names all, or I call them by the wrong name. That's another fun fact. So
My grandma did that too. She would go through all of her sons and then my mom and get to me, you know, Bill, Mike, Skip, Denise, Sean,
mhm,
and
mhm,
then she'd get to me. So yeah, or
mhm.
to them, and they just laugh. So yeah. So if we will definitely keep it updated and we will stay accountable to the product that we put out. So
Yeah, there you
speaking
go.
of which, is today's topic is accountability, which is that fourth level of Lencioni's pyramid of those five functions or dysfunctions of a team, right? So we talked about trust, and building that trust and establishing trust allows us to have meaningful and healthy conflict, right? And when we are able to have healthy conflict where we can resolve things and we know that at the end of the day, we're going to respect each other and we have each other's best interest in mind, we get to commitments where we are committed to each other because we know that we have each other's best interest in mind, which, leads us to being accountable, right? And
Mhm.
just thinking about what does it mean to be accountable, right? I mean, there's a lot of different functionalities, a lot of times, when I just Google, what does it mean to be accountable at work, right? And I just Google and a bunch of things popped up, and most of them were about getting your work done, following, your policies and procedures, right? And living up to the expectations, right? Which were definitely important, right? And being productive, right? So those
Mhm.
are four things, right? And those are those are what would you expect from somebody at any job,
Mhm.
right? And is that it? Is that all? Right? When I'm thinking about the different dynamics, the larger scope of what it means to be accountable, right? We have those organization, accountability features, right? Completing tasks, meeting expectations, right? And then also policies, procedures, and regs. But when I'm thinking about being accountable, there's other things we're accountable to, right? We're accountable, to our team members as a team, right? And then we're accountable. If we're leaders, we're accountable to our unit, right? And so how we hold folks accountable, but also how are we accountable to them? And then the
Hmm.
last, personal accountability. How are, our accountability, our value systems, our ethics, our morals, our career development, right? There's a lot more to accountability than, meets the eye, right? Or just pulls up in a Google Doc or, a 45-minute lecture from somebody at an all staff, right? And so, we spent a lot of time talking about those organizational accountabilities, right? Accomplishing tasks, meeting those expectations. Spent a lot of time talking about expectations last class, right? And, following P's and P's. I mean, those are things that have
Hmm.
to get done. Otherwise, you're building podcasts and websites all the time, right? So, but just thinking about those other aspects, just thinking about team members. What does it mean to be accountable to your peers, your colleagues on your team? Tiff, what does that mean for you?
So for me, accountability, there's like two main pieces of accountability for me. Number one, accountability is taking ownership over your choices. And a lot of times people think that accountability is about punishment or about just fulfillment. Like I have to be accountable to what's assigned to me. But I think it's really about like choices because there's never any like scripted life that everything will happen the way that you plan. Like life happens, things change. How do you respond to it? So again, for me, accountability is taking ownership for your choices, both good and bad. So as an example of this, we're talking about pumpkin spice lattes. If I go to Starbucks and I order a pumpkin spice latte and I ask for it with whole or with oat milk, I can taste right away, is my coffee right or is it not right? I know if they use milk or not. So that's what happened. My coffee's wrong. Now I have choices on how I choose to respond to that. I can say, oh, you know what? They're busy. They made a mistake. I'll just take the coffee as is. No big deal. I'll drink the regular milk. I'll pay for the consequences later. That's a choice that I can make. I can also very politely say, hey, this was supposed to be with oat milk. Do you mind remaking it for me, please? I'd really appreciate it. And they remake it for me. I get a new coffee. Or I could take that pumpkin spice latte, throw it across the room, cuss everybody out, and tell them they're a bunch of idiots. How hard is it to make a cup of coffee? And then I go viral and I lose my job. Like, that's a choice. Regardless of what I choose, I have to be accountable for what I decided. I can't say, oh, it's the barista's fault for making my coffee wrong. I had choices in how to respond. So I have to be accountable for what I choose to do in any given moment. This is true as a leader. This is true as a team member. This is true as just like an individual in society, right? I can't choose what happens around me. I have to be accountable of how I choose to respond to things. So for me, accountability is about choice. That's really what I think about when I think of accountability. And that also means, again, owning the consequences of choices that you made that were not great. So if I choose, maybe in the moment I think it's the best choice, but it ends up not being the best choice, taking ownership that I made that choice. I could have done something different if I had thought about it. So that's the first part of accountability that I think about. The second part of accountability is, for me, acknowledging intention over impact. I'm sorry, the other way around. Impact over intention. That's what I meant to say. Acknowledging impact over intention. And I say that because I want to say, I want to believe that people are inherently good and that people try to do the best they can with what they have. I really do truly believe that in most circumstances, people are trying to do the right thing. It doesn't always come out that way. There's lots of factors that play into it. And when we do the wrong thing, not relying on, well, I was trying to do this, or this is what I wanted to do, which is the intention, but really acknowledging the impact to say, you know what, I'm sorry, I made this error and it threw us off track on our project. Let's see how we can get it back on track. Or when I said that to you, I'm sorry that it hurt you. I value you. I respect you. I want to have a good relationship with you. I certainly didn't mean it, but I can see how it's caused you harm and I would love to avoid this in the future. Like that to me is the accountability, is the ownership of the impact, not just trying to justify it with the intention.
Mhm.
So those are the two pieces of accountability that really stand out for me. And again, not just work life, but life. because I think we've come to a point in society where everybody is so into self-preservation that we don't choose accountability. A lot of times we choose blame, blaming another person, blaming the circumstances, blaming the situation, which gets us back into the drama triangle. And that's, again, we're trying to avoid that. So I think from the pyramid, the organizational standpoint of this, in Lencioni's pyramid, when we talk about accountability from this perspective, it's like, how do we fulfill the commitment that we made, right? So we trust each other. We've dealt with the conflict. We've discussed things. We've made a commitment. Now, how do we be accountable to that and make choices that support that collective commitment? And not only am I willing to hold you accountable if you're not following that path, but I'm open to also being accountable if there's a flaw in my contribution, where we can have open conversations about that and be accountable to each other, to the goal, to the organization, whatever that is, without resentment. And I'm saying without resentment. Nobody likes to make a mistake. I don't like to make mistakes. I'm not a huge fan of being wrong. I've accepted it more as I've gotten older that I make mistakes. Not something I could have done probably 10, 15 years ago. Like, justify. Let me tell you why. That was kind of fun. But I'm more open now to being accountable and being willing to say, you know what? Okay, what can I do better next time? How do I grow from this? I don't want to just experience it, but how do I grow from this and try not to make that mistake again? Or how do I change my perspective to get more in line with what we're trying to do? Because it's important to me.
And so you mentioned, being accountable for our mistakes and our choices, right? But you also mentioned, the blame game. So, what makes people not want to be accountable, right? Not take ownership of their mistakes. Because we know if you don't take ownership for your mistakes, then you don't have to take ownership for fixing them,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I mean, I myself, if I make a mistake, I want to know that I have the choice, the agency to be able to make, the adjustments or to fix those things that I made mistakes on. So, what are some of the reasons why you think, what do you think are some of the reasons why people have a hard time dealing with that?
Trust. We'll
Trust.
go back to the bottom of the pyramid. It's the lack of vulnerability. So a lot of reasons I think of people will avoid accountability is that it somehow lessens their credibility, their competency, their standing. Like, there's this fear that if I admit that I was wrong, that somehow it diminishes my value, right? It's that lack of vulnerability. I think in leadership, especially, leaders are, I always say, like, the farther away that you get from, the bottom of the pyramid, the higher you get to the top, like the less forgiveness there is for mistakes. And, we, as leaders, a lot of times people get stuck in, I have to be right. I can't admit that maybe I didn't have enough information, or maybe I didn't heed the warnings from the people who were telling me this was going to fail. I didn't listen to that, or whatever the cause is. That inability to say, you know what, I made a mistake and here's what I've learned from it. It's almost like doubling down. Well, I made that choice and I made it, and now I'm making a different one. Just deal with it. And I'm exaggerating here. Maybe it's not that aggressive, but there's a doubling down in, yeah, I made that decision, versus to say, I didn't have complete information, or I made the wrong conclusion. Let's figure it out, move forward. I think it's just that lack of that lack of trust that I can be vulnerable and people will still think I'm a good leader.
How did you not know how to do that? You've been here 10 years,
You're the
right?
CEO, shouldn't
You're
you
the
know?
CEO. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you're the officer, right?
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and it's like I had a boss one time, no joke, used to tell me and my colleague, find out information about this. I need to take this up to the EMG for a meeting and to the board. I can't be the person in that meeting who does not know the answer.
Right,
So what is she doing? She's setting me and my colleague up for failure,
right,
because we can spend 20 hours scouring every resource that we know to come up with every piece of information. And somebody's going to ask a question in that meeting where we don't have the specific data that they are looking for. And all of a sudden, well, they asked about this and you didn't have that. Okay, well, we didn't anticipate them. Well, why didn't you anticipate that? Because I'm not in that person's brain. I don't
Right.
know. We spend a lot because I only work 40 hours a week and I've got other things that I'm working on.
Right.
Right? So that's a challenge. Well, what am I supposed to say? And I said, well, how about, that's a great question. Let me take it back to my team. We'll find that information out and get it right back to you. Oh, well, it's almost as if that person, do you mean I have to let them know that I may not know this right off the bat? What will that do to my scarf, right? Status. What will that do to my sense of status?
Right.
Right. And it's just such a mess. So, and you're right. Lack of trust. We're worried about what other people are going to say or do or think about us, how much trust they're going to put in our ability to take care of
Right.
things, right? And it's our idea of control, our idea of who we are, who we're supposed to be. You're right. As leaders in government service, further up you go, the more you're supposed to know everything, right? And
Right.
and everybody says that. Every time we have that conversation in a class, the higher you get, what's the assumption? We're supposed to know more. Yeah. Well, what happens if you don't? What happens if, you know, you came from one division to another and took on you got promoted and you don't know anything about that division? Are you supposed to is it supposed to be like Neo in the Matrix and just, download
Mhm.
that information in your brainstem and all of a sudden you know Kung Fu, right?
Right.
It don't work.
Mm-mm. No, but this and so that like for me, this is an opportunity for all people, everybody, leadership, non-leadership, whatever,
Yeah.
partner, parent, to be willing to be vulnerable. I'll give this a parent experience. So I had my kids really young. I tell my kids all the time we're really close because we grew up together. Like I mean, I was really young. So I mean, I have a son who's 27. If that tells you anything. So um,
And you're 37, so it's like super,
yeah,
that's crazy.
exactly.
Yeah.
Super young. So when with my first one especially, I didn't make good parenting decisions. I didn't know how to parent. I was a kid still. I was still trying to figure out how to be a grown up, let alone be a parent. And so the first kid's like the first pancake. You mess it up, the other ones come out great. The first one, sorry, Oscar. So with that being said, you don't know what you don't know. And I learned a lot, of course, through the time and being a parent. I'm a great parent now, but I can't always say that that was a true story, especially, in the earlier years. And so I spend a lot of time being accountable to my oldest child, especially like taking ownership of I didn't know better and I'm sorry and I wish I would have known better. If I could do it all over again, this is what I would do different. But I did always love you. I did always love you. I just, if I had known then what I know now, I would have handled this situation differently. I could have done that better. And the vulnerability to share with him, I think is healing for both of us in the terms that I can let him know I didn't know it all and I made a lot of mistakes. And he was a kid, but he admits like I made a mistake too. Like I shouldn't have done this or I shouldn't have done that. And like it's very healing for us to be vulnerable with each other. And of course, this is my child, so like we're never going to not love each other. But I think in the workplace too, as people become leaders, they are going to make mistakes. You don't know what you don't know. And as you're developing your leadership style and you're developing like who do you want to be as a leader, you're going to make missteps. You're going to make the wrong decisions. You're going to make the wrong choices. And being able to tell an employee like, hey, I know, Carl, I had you getting all the data and I put you on the spot to be responsible for all of these details. And I realize now that wasn't a great position to put you in. And I'm sorry I made that choice. Like, how can we moving forward be a more cohesive team and I don't put so much pressure on you to do my job? Like, being able to, again, own, not double down, well, I'm the boss and you're going to do what I tell you, which I don't know if that was your experience, but to be able to say I've learned from this and I can acknowledge now it wasn't the best choice. What do we want to do? How do we want to manage this? Because it's important to me. Like
Yeah.
that's I think the vulnerability that we need to see in the workplace from our leaders. But at the same time, can I also say that colleagues and coworkers have to be able to hold each other accountable as well? Like, I am so sick and freaking tired of the passive aggressive bullshit that happens in organizations to avoid having direct conversations. Like, friendly reminder per policy 47-01, blah, 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 blah. Or the dreaded, Carl, it's been brought to my attention. I don't know what happens after that. I black out. As soon as I hear it's been brought to my attention, you can kick rocks. I'm not interested. Like, you're just repeating gossip to me.
Mhm.
Get out of here with that. Like, I get so frustrated with that versus like let's be accountable. Let's be accountable. Let's have a real conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, what does that conversation look like? What does being accountable look like with colleagues that you work with, colleagues that maybe you don't always work with, but you need to, right? I mean, you and I have both worked in organizations where there's silos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people, there aren't locks on the doors between the two departments, but there are psychological padlocks and moats and you know um, drawbridges and people pouring oil over you and setting you on fire before you walk through that door psychologically, right? That's a no-go. We can't talk to them. We can't handle that, right? And it's such a challenge, right? If we don't have alignment, if we don't collaborate and communicate,
Right.
we're not going to be productive. And if productivity is um, exacerbated by you being in the customer service business, in the service for humans, human services maybe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then, who suffers? The folks that are already suffering and now have to suffer more because of the BS between those two departments that just don't talk to each other just because we don't talk to each other.
Right.
Oh, those are those people, right?
Yeah.
It's like I always use an example when I talk about accountability. There's a difference between halfway accountability and complete accountability, right? Halfway accountability is, hey, I do my job, I get my stuff done, right? I do what I'm supposed to do, check off the boxes, and I get them done quickly. And then I push it off, goes up the chain or however many other approvals. I don't know what happens after that. That I wash my hands of it, I'm good, right? Which can work in production places and factories, right? Or, where you just move from one piece to the next. And, in terms of engineering senses, right? You always find bottlenecks through that type of engineering. But this is social engineering, right? This is like between people, right? So, when you are taking care of something and you wash your hands of it, and your client calls and says, hey, I turned in that mileage reimbursement a couple of days ago, just want to check on that status. And we say, I don't know, I processed it like I was supposed to. I don't know what to tell you. They have 5 business days. I don't know what else to tell you. Right.
Yeah.
And just call me back next week. Maybe I can, or if you don't get it by next week, then I'll let my supervisor know. Whatever else it is, right, where we are not responsible for the rest of the process, who does that affect? That person who is maybe waiting on that mileage reimbursement to be able to get gas to go to work,
Right.
right? Or that person who's spent the rest of their EBT card on that mileage, on that gas to go to work, and now needs that mileage reimbursement to replenish their
Right.
food, right? Kids, right? I always boil it down to the bottom line. When we're talking about the work that we've done for geez, almost 30, 40 years, Tiff, a little over 40 years, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to date you, but I've been doing this a
I've
long
been doing
time.
21 years. I've been doing it 21 years.
Well,
Don't
over
put
40
40
years.
nothing. I'm not even 40 years
Yeah.
old yet. Don't be crazy. I'm
It'll
40.
be,
I'm over 40. I'm
it'll,
well
it'll
in
be
the 40s.
21. It'll be 21 in December for me.
Yeah.
But, just thinking about, who is it that gets, affected
Yeah.
by us not communicating and us maybe not wanting to call that department and check in.
Hmm.
And hey, just my client called and they just want to know the status of this. Where are you guys at? So I can let them know. I mean, that's a simple call, isn't it? But how often does that simple call all of a sudden get ran? Why is this person from this department calling us? And don't they know that we have 5 business days to process
Hmm.
this too, and blah blah blah, and it just blows up. And people who put their hand out get it chopped off, and they say, I don't want to deal with those people. And so who suffers? That family, right? That customer, and so
Hmm.
that's who are we responsible to? Who are we accountable to? Right? We're accountable to our organization. We're accountable to our own ideas of how we're supposed to get work done, but we're also accountable to that end user, right? All the stakeholders, not just the stakeholders above us, but the folks that we work with on a regular basis, right? And when we are not holding each other accountable, where we do not practice accountability by connecting with each other and taking those chances of checking on status, and for it to be okay to check on a status
Right.
without people being defensive or feeling like you're infringing on them, right? Because the client has a question. I mean, what are we doing this for?
Right. Well, I think that's what boils down to that commitment part of it. Like, what is the bottom line? What is the goal? What are we all trying to achieve? And so, in human services especially, I think that there's I I don't want to use the word pandemic because that's a bad word, right? Beetlejuice is coming out this Friday. I don't want to say it out loud 3 times, but there's
Epidemic?
like an epidemic. There we go, of people, of putting the process over people, where we do have all of these rules and regulations and policies and procedures, which I'm not going to say is a bad thing. We have to have structure. We have to have guidelines. We have to have clarity and like what the expectations are. But when we become so rigid on the policy at the expense of the people, then that's where we have to be accountable as well, given that we're a people-centered business. And this is true, I think, for any industry. This is not just the service industry, but like industry in general. If I'm not like accountable to my contribution, then I can't sit there and point the finger at everybody else. So in your example, you're saying like I call the other department, say, hey, I just want to check the status. Like I want to give the customer a good time frame. If that person's like, I got 5 days, quit calling me. If I choose not to check in the next time, I have to own that choice. Like, oh, I'm going to avoid this negative interaction, so I'm not going to follow up. I'm just going to tell the customer 5 days versus advocating for them. I'm making a choice to let the process be over the people versus saying, hey, I just wanted to check in. Didn't I tell you last time? Yes, you did. You did. You know what? You're right. You did tell me last time. And this customer really needs it. So I want to give them the correct answer. Could you give me, you know, uh, a time frame more or less when they can expect it? Because their kids got a field trip next Tuesday. And if they don't get this reimbursement, they can't go on that field trip with their friends. And so that's why it's so important to me, right? Like being willing to be vulnerable enough to push it a little bit instead of saying, I'm going to avoid discomfort because that person was sassy with me that one time, so I'm never going to call again. You have to be accountable for that choice to disengage versus saying, let me maybe push it or build a relationship with that person so we don't have an interaction like that the next time. You know, it's it's hard. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it's easy. Like I have a person that I work with that I don't appreciate the tone of their delivery, or if I ask questions, I don't love the way that they respond. And I'm like making the choice to not be what's the word I'm looking for? I try not to match the energy. I still to try to stay friendly. I still try to like think about their perspective and understand where they're coming from. My first instinct is uh respond back with that same sassy energy, but that's not going to get me anywhere. I have to be accountable for that. I can't choose the way that that person speaks to me. I can't choose the way that they respond, but I can choose how I choose to respond, and I want to be accountable for that. And there have been times where I've like tried to help them be accountable as well and say, when you say things like this to me, this is how I take it. What did you mean? Right? Like I want to help you be accountable and understand that you're having an impact on me, But I can't choose how they take it. And I can't choose what they decide to do with that information, but I still don't have to match that energy and just find ways to navigate around that. Until it becomes a problem, and then maybe it has to go to another level. But I want to give people the opportunity to know what I need from them so they can be accountable, but I'm going to always be accountable for my contribution. Always.